Hello and good day to you. This is Tyler, and you are listening to the Analytive podcast. Today, I'm super excited to actually have not one, but two guests online with me today. This episode is about LinkedIn advertising, about using LinkedIn ads to grow your business. If you are in the B2B space, if you have high lifetime value of $10,000, $15,000, if you're in sales, man, this episode is for you. It's so rich. I learned a ton, and we run linked ads for clients, but I learned a ton from our two guests. So let me introduce those guests. We have AJ Wilcox, and AJ is a LinkedIn ads pro who founded B2Linked.com, a LinkedIn ad specific ad agency in 2014. As official LinkedIn partners, they manage among the world's most sophisticated advertising accounts on LinkedIn. He's a ginger and a triathlete. He and his wife live in Utah with their 4 kids, and his company car is a wicked fast go-kart. Also on this episode, I have a very special guest who works for LinkedIn, currently based in their Detroit office. Matthew Milantoni advises and consults with tech companies who deploy digital campaigns on the world's largest professional platform, that is LinkedIn. As one of the first 50 hires in the newly constructed space, Milantoni is on a mission to help companies scale lead gen and target audiences that matter most. Let me just say from the bottom of my heart, I'm grateful for these two guys for coming on the podcast. I learned a ton. I thought we had a great conversation about LinkedIn ads, LinkedIn advertising, and how to use it for your business. So get out your pencil and paper or Evernote or whatever you use. Get ready to take some notes. And without further ado, we dive into LinkedIn advertising. All right, AJ, Matthew, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Super excited to be here.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to start with you, Matthew. So you're full-time at LinkedIn. So how did you get on LinkedIn ads? Did you have any background prior to this? Or is this something that you just kind of fell into as you started working at LinkedIn?
Yeah, so no background at all, actually, Tyler. Metro Detroit native, born and raised. Since I got out of college, I was pretty much directing a sales team for a local residential company. LinkedIn started contributing to like the big boom and resurgence of what was happening in downtown Detroit. And I got really excited about it, started chatting with a couple of people, and actually had someone reach out. Marketing Solutions was one of the first teams that I chatted with. Really quickly fell in love with that side of the business, all the growth that's been happening. Did as much research as I could and was like, okay, I think I can make this work. I think I can learn about this and be really passionate about it. And here we are today. I was actually, I think, number 50 at LinkedIn Detroit. So it's been really cool.
Awesome. And how many people are there ballpark now?
Maybe 60, 61, 62.
Okay.
Usually trickle in a couple at a time.
And I think I saw that you guys are growing. You're hiring more people as well right now.
We sure did, yeah. So we bought the old Sanders factory in downtown Detroit.
Okay.
And we've got maybe 4 or 5 floors that we're going to put out, hopefully looking to add maybe another 200 seats here in the next couple of years. So it's small now, but it should be getting bigger.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. And then AJ, so you are kind of known as a LinkedIn ninja, right? So you've been doing this a while. How did you first get into LinkedIn advertising?
Yeah, well, about 8 years ago, I called myself an SEO guy. I did a lot of paid search and just general digital marketing. And I went to go work for a company here in the state of Utah where I live, and was just running a whole digital marketing department. And on my very first day, I go and share my strategies with the CMO, laid out all my plans. And she was like, okay, all that sounds great. But just so you know, we started a pilot using LinkedIn ads 2 weeks ago. See what you can do with it. And I saluted and said, yes, ma'am. And then I walked out of her office and went, I know nothing about LinkedIn ads, but I don't want to look like an idiot to my new boss. And so I dove in, started trying to figure things out. And about 2 weeks later, I had one of my new sales reps come up to me who said, AJ, we don't know what you're doing over here, but we're fighting over your leads. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. And I went into Salesforce trying to figure out what are the leads he's talking about. And I found every single one of them was sourced from LinkedIn ads, was not the only channel. And it was at that point I went, ooh, there's something here. I should keep investing.
For sure. So then for businesses because folks who listen to this podcast are everywhere from like established businesses to just getting started in either B2B or B2C. So in order to even think about doing LinkedIn ads, right, in order to think about this as a viable channel, what needs to happen? What needs to be in place within maybe the organization from a budget perspective? Like if you walk into a business, what makes a good candidate for LinkedIn ads?
Well, for me, I think there are 4 qualifications that I run every company through. I want to understand, is their targeted audience reachable on LinkedIn? Because the costs tend to be higher. So if the targeting is a dead-on fit, then that's fantastic. If it's not, they might be able to have better results on a different platform. Number 2, they've got to have good content, because we know if we put up an ad that just says, click here to talk to our sales rep, no one will click that ad and it just won't run. So we need something that's actually going to incentivize them to convert. We also know that because of LinkedIn's costs being a little bit higher, we need to make sure that they have a high enough deal size or lifetime value at the back end to really make sense of that. And then number 4, they've got to have a big enough budget that they can have a good enough sample for testing. I tell people, if you're not starting with, like 3 to 5K per month to start out with, wait until you do, because you don't want to get $1,000 in and say, oh, this doesn't work. And, you don't have very many leads to even compare. You might have missed all the gold.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's break those down if we can then. So target audience. So what, and maybe it's looking at the negative, right? What wouldn't be a good opportunity for LinkedIn? But when you say target audience, so on LinkedIn, you can do, function targeting, role targeting, job title targeting. You can do some demographics. But what, from a LinkedIn perspective, what is, a gold campaign as far as targeting? What would you know about your audience in order to be able to do that?
Well, for me, I want to make sure that whatever targeting it is makes sense. So if a client comes to me and they say, we need to hit people who are HR decision makers in companies with at least 500 employees in North America, something like that, I go, ooh, immediately off the top of my mind, I have 4 different ways I can reach that audience. If I create 4 separate campaigns reaching the same audience, all using different targeting, and I run them for long enough, I'm going to find efficiencies that my competitors have not. And so I can feed what works and starve what doesn't. So that's pretty cool. But if you came to me and said, hey, we're looking to target life coaches who have, $2 to $5 million in business and have shown interest in, puppies over the last 6 months, then I go, ooh, you know what? Probably not the best thing on LinkedIn.
Because of just the inability to target, like, say, interests and things that you would have if you use Facebook or another platform?
Yeah, exactly. And we do have interests on LinkedIn. Matthew can talk more to that. But it's not a perfect fit. If LinkedIn doesn't have like an exact head-on, this is the right way to reach this audience, then I don't consider it as square.
Mm-hmm. So then, Matthew, talking about what you've seen with the clients that you work with in audience targeting, anything you want to add to what AJ said, or anything that maybe you have to take?
Yeah, so just to expand a bit on what AJ is talking about, he mentioned, hey, so we know HR decision makers in companies of 500 or more. There's 4 different ways to reach those people. If you're talking to a marketer who's worked on this for maybe the first time, that might not be crystal clear. But when you get into the tool for a little bit, the really cool thing about LinkedIn in general is there's 600 million plus members, and people care about who they are professionally. So they give us a lot of information. The job title is one thing. That's the most obvious. From that, you can infer someone's seniority, how much decision-making prowess that they might have. But from that, you can begin to expand out and to say, hey, let's talk about targeting a function along with an actual seniority. If we want to just hit the C-level, the directors, maybe the managers in a specific niche. And that's where, working with an agency partner, working with someone from LinkedIn, or just, doing a bunch of reading can help you out. Because I'm sure AJ can expand on this more, but titles are obvious. And because of that, the market also ends up being more competitive. I generally see if you can find a creative way to get to your audience, you can save some money too, which is super helpful.
Nice. Good. So you would generally recommend starting with what, maybe function and seniority instead of job title? Or is it sort of you need the budget to launch all 4 or 5 of these and then just see what works?
I personally like to launch all 4 of these targeting methods. So job title we know is going to cost maybe a little bit more per click, but it's also going to be really precise and won't, it's not a super large audience, probably won't spend all your budget. We like to launch job function with seniority for those audiences that may make sense for, something that's broad enough to fit within a department like HR or accounting or marketing. We can do skills plus seniority and also groups plus seniority. And so even at a small scale, if you're running all 4 of these right next to each other, you'll find little efficiencies like, ooh, job title is more expensive. Oh, but it converts to MQL or SQL at a higher rate. So let's keep it on. Skill, oh, maybe this is too broad. Let's dump this or bid it down.
Yeah. So then, Matthew, talk a little bit about group targeting. I know that's something we have tried on a couple of projects that we've worked on with some success. But so how does group targeting work within LinkedIn?
Yeah, it's a great question. So let's talk about Matthew 3 years ago. Was in a sales development role at a tech startup. At the time, I'm following Sales Hacker. I'm following the HubSpot sales blogs of the world. I'm engaged with this stuff. I love it. I'm reading it as often as possible. I'm in these groups because this is my wheelhouse. I care about, like, not only am I a part of that niche, but if I care enough to join a group, I'm probably relatively invested in that group. When you're targeting on LinkedIn, you can say, hey, I've got Amazon Web Services, and anybody who uses that, we know is going to be someone that may want to have a conversation with us. In the targeting, you can start to mess around, type in Amazon Web Services, see the different groups that you have available, add 3, 4, 5 of them together, and pretty quickly you can probably get to an audience of 200,000, 250,000 just from combining 2, 3, 4 groups of people who are in that niche and care about that topic that you're trying to communicate with.
Nice, very cool. And do you have any data on like how active? So you have 600 million users, I think you said, right? So how many people are active in groups regularly? For example, I'm somebody who uses LinkedIn all the time, but I just don't do groups. Like I think I joined some 6 years ago or 7 years ago, but I'm not a part anymore. So do you have any metrics or any idea how many people are sort of active group users?
None whatsoever. No, not as up on that specifically. One of the things we have noticed though is general engagement in the newsfeed has been up 40% year over year. So there are conversations happening. There are people learning about brands, learning about new concepts, staying up on competitive things. If that's any indication of what's going on with those groups as well, it's certainly a good thing. But for groups specifically, I don't have any data.
Well, I think, unless somebody does a drastic career change too, because I'm still part of social media marketing groups, right? And here we are on a podcast talking about LinkedIn. So unless you have a major career pivot, going from, marketing to window washing or something like that, I think there's still some relevance there, even, if they joined 5 years ago.
And I would throw into that, right now you really have to go out of your way to join a group on LinkedIn. They're not pushing them. They're kind of sidelined on purpose. And so that means if you're using group targeting, you may not hit super large audiences, but you got an audience who like we've talked about, the topic of that group is near and dear to them. It's a topic that they are really passionate about, and they are most likely more active users on LinkedIn. So certainly don't exclude group targeting just because it might not drive enough traffic for us. Some of that could be some of your best traffic.
Right, because it's somebody who cares very much about whatever profession or topic they happen to be in. Plus, they're active on LinkedIn, so that they're going to see your ad often, right? Potentially, if you have the budget to get in front of them.
Totally.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, we could spend all day on targeting, but AJ, the second thing you said is good content, right? And that's a very broad bucket, and it means something different to everyone else. So in order to actually put a campaign together on LinkedIn, what does good content mean for businesses?
Yeah, and you're right. It's so broad. I mean, good content, what it means is giving someone something that they want to read or consume. But when you start really breaking it down to, okay, how do I actually create this? You've got a couple different directions you could go. You could go towards content that is, maybe it's just on your blog and super helpful. Here's a nice infographic. And you're going to pay $6 to $9 a click on LinkedIn. So sending someone to an asset like that is very helpful. It might help with branding, but chances are, like, at some point you're going to have to say, ooh, okay, what's our cost per lead here? And because those assets don't have a strong call to action, you'll have a really high cost per lead. So what I tell people is make sure, especially if you're just testing into LinkedIn, make sure you have a gated asset of some kind. And so if that's a free checklist or a cheat sheet, a guide, an ebook, a free webinar, a free in-person event, something where there's a lot of value, and in exchange for it, at least you're going to get an email address out of it.
Gotcha. So, and then Matthew, I mean, you get to see sort of under the hood of a lot of different campaigns that are working well. What do you see on the content side that seems to work well?
Yeah, so let me do this. Let me quote my two favorite agency owners, and I'll give you both a quote I've heard from both of you that I think addresses this really well. And AJ's is that if you're putting something out there, you want to offer something valuable, and it can fit into one of two categories. And that's, hey, does this help me be better at my job tomorrow? Or maybe in 3 months with a longer sales cycle. But can this help my team be more efficient? Is it something that's really going to make a difference in my organization? And the other is as an individual. So again, if you're taking 4 years ago, Matt, who's looking how to create an email cadence. If SalesLoft is sending me, hey, here are the 15 best email templates that had the best response rate last year, I'm going to be all over that. So in the career or in the specific role, super valuable. And Tyler, just to go back to something like one of our recent conversations is to be mindful that your content isn't exclusively self-serving and is genuinely thinking about the user you're trying to reach. You combine those things together, probably going to be in the right wheelhouse.
Good. Yeah. I see AJ nodding vigorously on that as well.
Yeah, I harp on this regularly. I mean, we'll have clients who will say, ooh, we have an ebook. Here, try this out. And the ebook is like either totally self-serving or just not interesting. And when we go to actually create ads for that, there is no amount of lipstick we can put on that pig to make it like a good offer. And it won't convert. We know cost per click will be high, conversion rates will be super low, and the client's going to fail. So definitely worth making sure you have content that people actually want. It's actually valuable.
Yeah, for sure. And what I tell when I work with clients, I'm like, is this something that people would be willing to pay $5 for? Right. And that's like a good rule of thumb, because if not, right, then, if it's just a sales brochure, whatever it happens to be, then, okay, it doesn't make sense. Because even though they're not paying money for it, they're giving you their email, they're trading basically that trust for you, and they're giving their time. They're going to download it and consume it. Plus, if it's not valuable, yeah, maybe you got the lead in, but they're going to be like, oh, this company, is full of crap, right? Because they promised all of this great stuff, and then what we got is this, 3-page guide or whatnot.
Awesome.
Cool. So then, AJ, moving down kind of your 4 points, you talked then about deal size. So what is there a rule of thumb on deal size that it makes sense for LinkedIn ads?
Well, what we have found is, as a rule of thumb, and certainly not the rule, but we like to see a customer lifetime value of over about $15,000. If you average there and you have average sales nurture and follow-up, average close rates, you're probably still going to have like a 3 to 4 times return on your investment. And that's great. Of course, we do have clients who they're much more optimized. We've been going longer. We know we can close business with between $800 and $2,000 in ad spend. And so once you get to that level, then you go, okay, well, I mean, as long as we make $3,000, as long as we make $5,000, then we're still in the money. But as a general rule of thumb, shoot high, make sure that there's enough meat on that bone. So if you have some learnings, if you have some optimizations to make, you'll still be successful.
I think what's interesting is that level of budget often precludes a lot of typical SaaS companies, right? Software as a service companies, whose lifetime value might be in the $5,000 to $6,000 range. Again, unless it's a big company or you have many, many seats. And then Matthew, I know you had a little bit different perspective, I think, on this, at least as far as, because one of the questions is, what types of businesses should avoid LinkedIn advertising?
Yeah, so it's an interesting point to raise, because I think as an agency partner, if I'm putting myself in both of your shoes, the ultimate thing that keeps clients and keeps them happy is certainly is hitting the ROI metric and showing the cost per acquisition. And the really good thing about LinkedIn and the way that we've set up the platform is oftentimes so that we can achieve that. We know leads typically on our platform are of higher quality. They're going further into sales cycles. They're making sales managers very happy. On the other end, I work with a handful of marketers every day who either have smaller deal sizes, or they may even be in the B2C world for more luxury type goods. And for them, the ultimate goal may not be hitting a 3-4 to 1 ROI situation. It's that, hey, we know this job title and this person is on LinkedIn, and we can get an audience together of 10,000 people. And we want to show them this video because we know it's going to lead later on down the road to Google searches and intent-based stuff. And just the quality of data on who we have on the platform can make a lot of sense as well. But generally speaking, B2C companies, we've got to be really mindful of how we target, how we spend, how we go about it, and put a good plan together beforehand so that, we're not trying to make the shoe fit as we would our B2B $50,000 deal size companies go.
Okay. So if you are a B2C company, under what parameters would it make sense then to think about at least do some testing on LinkedIn? What would be the minimum requirements in order to even have a chance of succeeding on a platform that's as expensive typically as LinkedIn?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of my clients is a B2C, like luxury men's clothing company kind of thing. Okay. They have a pretty reasonable retargeting group. And
interesting. Okay.
So what they do is they send out some carousel ads, and they have like 3 or 4 of like they're showing like the product and like the kind of swag that they carry as a brand. And it's led to like a reasonable amount of purchases, like nothing to blow the doors off. But for their instance, they're smart with how they're doing it. They've got an agency partner who's very thoughtful about the way that he approaches it. And it's added a different way that they can contribute in the media space. All reasonably done and pretty mindful about the way they're going about it.
I do like that. And I like the retargeting as the targeting bucket, right? That makes a ton of sense because somebody's already expressed interest. So they're not going out and being like, well, we want to target our, shirts to Fortune 500 CEOs who already probably have their favorite shirt. But instead they say, okay, people who have expressed interest on our site, now we can go after them and show them. So that now, and I'm sure they're probably doing other stuff on Google Display and Facebook and Instagram. And so I really like that retargeting angle. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then let's talk about budget then. So AJ, if somebody's just getting started, right? So they got the A-OK from, the marketing manager, they have some content that's actually valuable. They figured out that they could target folks and they know their deal size is right. How would you start? I mean, in the first couple months, like what would that look like?
So I would recommend budget somewhere between about 3 and 5K. And the reasons for this are pretty simple. What we've found is we lose a lot of clients if they're spending less than about the 3K mark. So we go, oh, okay, maybe that contributes to a sample size that's not significant enough. And then we also know that usually your conversion rates become significant statistically to a 95% confidence interval, somewhere between about 3 and 5K in spend. And so we say, ooh, if you can spend that 3 to 5K during the first month, by the end of month 1, you have statistical significance in your data. And you can say, yes, this is working. We should continue or scale it up, or no, this sucks. We should get out.
Gotcha. And then how would you spend that? So let's just say you have $5,000, right? We talked about kind of 4 different audiences. You have different pieces of content. When you build out that first campaign to see what's going to work, I mean, how many campaigns are you running? How are you setting up your content? Like, can you walk me through maybe under the hood a little bit of what those campaigns actually look like?
Yeah, so we will build out as many campaigns as is necessary to hit the client's audience. Some may say, we go after everyone who's an HR decision maker. And in my mind, immediately I know, okay, that's 64 campaigns we're building. And then someone might say, oh, we're going after like just, VPs of logistics and above. And I know, okay, that's going to be like 6 campaigns. So that one's a little bit subjective. But as I build, I'm going to start with sponsored content as the ad format. And I probably want to start with the single image ad version, just the static. It's the simplest version. And that way, if there's an issue, it's the easiest to troubleshoot. And once you've gotten there, you can expand into the other variations of sponsored content really easily. So you can launch video ads, you can launch lead gen forms if you want, carousel, like Matthew mentioned. We can also go into text ads, which are very, very low risk. So we like them a lot. And if the offer is right, we can expand into sponsored in-mail. And of course, we can go deeper in that one.
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's maybe get to that. If we have time at the end, I'll follow up on that.
Okay.
But so you could run anywhere from 5, 6 campaigns to 64. But if you have a set budget of $5,000, I mean, how do you divide it up? And then what data do you need to see to start pruning campaigns and being like, this one's successful, this one's not? I mean, what are the core metrics you're looking at, over a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, all the way out to a month to say this worked, this did not work?
Well, the really nice thing is if you have a very large audience, what it means is there's so much available inventory there, you don't have to bid very high to hit it. So if I know I have clients who have an audience of 1.5 million or higher over all of those campaigns, I can probably bid the minimum or maybe even really close to it, and I know my efficiency is going to be really high. Whereas if I only launch 1 or 2 campaigns to get enough action out of those to get data, I'm probably going to have to bid higher, and I might have costs per lead that are 2-3 times what they would be if I kind of spread it out and bid lower. So that's our initial strategy. And what we're looking for is over the first few days, we are looking at click-through rates by audience to help us understand, number one, how interesting are our ads to this audience, and maybe also a little clue about how interesting our offer is. And so after the first few days, when you're saying, oh, good, we have a 0.6% click-through rate, we know these ads are getting initial interest, then we want to get enough clicks, maybe over the next 2-3 weeks, to see how conversions are shaking out. And then once we know we have the cost per conversion where we want it, usually around the end of the month, that tells us what we should do. Start either bidding things down, bidding up, scaling down.
Gotcha. Okay. Very, very, very helpful. So then the funnel then, when you build it out, let me back up and ask one more thing then. So as far as creative testing, right? So you have, each of these campaigns, do you create 4 or 5 creatives, drop them in each campaign? How do you sort of do that matrix of targeting versus creative so that you actually feel like you're getting good data and not just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks?
So because of wanting good data, we only launch 2 creative per campaign at any given time.
Interesting. Okay.
The reason for that is, and this is the same for Google and Facebook as well, if you launch 5 creative into a single campaign, one's going to get the majority of the impressions, one's going to do okay, and then ads 3 through 5 are totally ignored and will never reach significance. Mm-hmm. So I say, well, what was even the point of creating those ads if you're not going to get enough data on them? So we launch 2 at a time, run that test for long enough, then start our next A/B test, pause the 2 that are in there, launch our new A/B test.
And so when you launch 5, like you talked about, the 2 get a lot of attention. So the rest of them, though, you're saying that they likely don't get attention algorithmically, not because they're necessarily uninteresting ads.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think LinkedIn gave them the proper chance to shine, just like Facebook and AdWords don't, or Google Ads do the same thing. Like they made the call too early. Those ads now have a poor relevancy score. And so even if you tried to bid up and force them to spend, you would probably be paying way more per click than you'd like. So I would say, once the algorithm has taken a shot at them and said, these are not good ads, leave them alone. It's like, it's fighting an uphill battle to try to get them to be shown.
Interesting. Awesome. Very, very, very helpful. So then, Matthew, I know working in LinkedIn, especially top performing campaigns that you've seen, obviously, can't share client information or anything like that, but what do they tend to have in common, right? What are the things that sort of knock it out of the park, if you will? What do they have in common?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Tyler. And I think we can probably tie a couple of the things that we've talked about today together. That is, let me be hyper specific here. There's a technology company in New York area that I work with. And the one thing that they had that I don't think we had mentioned yet to be successful on LinkedIn is someone on the client's team who was hyper willing and wanted to see success on the platform and also like willing to be hands-on and learn about the techie things behind the scenes and go through a little bit of uncomfortability on learning the platform and how to best leverage it. They recently had a situation where couple years out of college, marketing day-to-day guy, working in it, owned it, had a little bit of budget. We connected, and they had a couple of situations where they had rock star content. So they had in a specific industry report, I think it was hospitality industry report, that they targeted specifically to the hospitality industry. And I think the last time that I checked, the connection there is perfect, and it performed 6-7 times a click-through rate of what an average piece of content does. They have, no joke, received I think about 200 leads in the last like 3 weeks commission rate, which is Hall of Fame numbers. AJ is shaking his fist over there. Hall of Fame numbers for the platform. But it took a couple of things. They had some budget. They were able to be flexible with their budget and say, hey, I think that we've got a winner here. And the biggest thing is we had someone on the team who was like, I want to be successful with this. And we chatted through how this can make a big impact on his career and his role. And now he's had conversations with like sales leaders on, hey, how are the leads doing? Is there anything we can do to make these better for you? So now he looks like the guy who came in, had put together the quality piece of content, checked with the sales team, and is providing them with valuable stuff. And that has been a really cool experience.
Nice. And so that 200 leads, what is a monthly spend? I mean, ballpark, is that, 5 or 10 grand? Do you have any idea what that is? Because if somebody's listening, they're like, wow, 200 leads sounds amazing. Again, if you have a piece of rockstar content, those are great numbers, results not typical sort of thing. But what's a company like that spending to get those 200 leads?
Yeah, so it was 2 campaigns, 2 lead gen forms, and they spent about 10K that month. Nothing absurd.
Sure.
Yep.
Very cool. So AJ, we covered a lot of the tactical stuff, and a lot of this is probably based on the top performing campaigns that you've had. But anything you want to throw in there, anecdotes, stories that you want to share?
No, that's perfect. I think we've really outlined who's going to have success on LinkedIn ads. And Matthew, I love the story about that current client who he now looks like the rock star, and he's really made a pathway for his whole career. That's amazing.
That's awesome. So maybe let's dig a little deeper now into the platform. So we talked about high level, so this gets us sort of set up. But then LinkedIn also has some unique features. So let's start with LinkedIn forms, right? So LinkedIn forms are just the ability, instead of sending somebody to a landing page that then they need to put in all their information, they can put it right on LinkedIn, and then you can integrate it with whatever CRM you happen to have via Zapier. When do we use them? When does it make sense to do that versus sending them to a landing page?
Well, I think that lead gen forms are fantastic because they get a much higher conversion rate on average. You can imagine if you're not asking someone to leave the platform, you're not asking them to look at a landing page and decide whether or not they trust you. They're not like filling in the information manually, because lead gen forms, mostly everything's auto-populated. And so we know we're going to have a 10 to 50% higher conversion rate on average, which is incredible. For a client to literally say, oh, we're going to have 50% more leads for the same amount of money, it's pretty much game changing for those who like volume is necessary. We do know that there are some cons that are associated with this. We know lead quality oftentimes suffers a little bit just because they made the decision to convert after reading 150 characters of text rather than visiting your landing page and seeing what's going on. No different from Facebook. You'll hear from Facebook advertisers who use lead ads like, oh, sometimes prospects are saying, I don't remember filling out a form. Like, why are you reaching out? You can expect some of that with LinkedIn as well. So I say lead gen forms are amazing if you need quantity over quality. You need more names in the database and you're working on nurture. If lead quality is of utmost importance, I would say get them to your landing page where you can do more with it. You can retarget, you'll leave a stronger impression, and you'll have a little bit higher of a cost per lead, maybe by 10 to 15 or 10 to 50%. But your sales team will appreciate the lead quality bump.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the challenges I've seen with LinkedIn forms is that so many people register to LinkedIn as they should rightly with their Gmail or a Yahoo or their personal email address, not necessarily the company email address. We have one client we're working with right now, and whenever they get a LinkedIn form, it's almost exclusively been a Gmail. So it's the type of people they want to reach, but it's not the inbox that they'd want to be in to sort of be taken seriously. And I know that's been a bit of a challenge as well because it's auto-populated off of the platform, whereas the leads that tend to come in when we send to a landing page are ones where they put in their, at mycompany.com. And so that's something that was too early for us to really tell how big of a negative that is, but it's something that I think we've noticed as we've kind of dug in there.
Well, I'll throw this out there. I know sales teams don't like the Gmail addresses, but as a social marketer, I absolutely love them because the personal email address is also what they registered on Facebook. It's also what they register on Twitter. It's what their Google account is under. And so I can do more as a marketer with that email address when it's personal. I'm going to have a higher match rate as I upload that into other platforms. So if the sales team is like, we absolutely need a work email address, sure, you can leave off the email field, add a custom field that someone has to actually write that just says work email, and you can try for those. But as a marketer, I really like the personals.
Yeah, so the opportunity here, right, is you get 500 leads off of the platform over 6 months. You then download those personal emails. You could take them to a platform like Facebook, upload it, and then use it to either match those exact users or to create a lookalike audience, something along those lines.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nice. Matthew, what are your thoughts on LinkedIn forums, having seen campaigns with them and without them?
I think AJ summarized it really well. We've had that situation often with the work email as well. One thing I will throw in there is I've had a little bit of luck recently pre-populating the work email field instead of, when you have two choices when selecting what to put in the field. There's a regular email. There is a pre-filled work email. What we find is that most users don't have one, a work email that is, but for the ones that do, it will populate. If they don't have a work email, it'll get us back to their personal email, which is moving towards a better semblance if it is going directly to the sales team and they're really upset about that situation. But I think AJ summarized lead gen forms really well.
So let me, if I can, Matthew, let me repeat that back. So there's a work email option that will then, if they've uploaded a work email into the platform, it'll default to that one. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, correct.
And then if they don't, which I'm sure a large number of users don't, then it will fall back. The fallback then is to the personal Gmail. Got it. Okay. Very cool.
Precisely. Yep.
Cool. So then let's also talk about the algorithm. And Matthew, maybe you can kick this off. I mean, any insights on how to work with the algorithm instead of against it? The algorithm is ultimately what makes a decision about where your ads pop up. AJ had stuff to say about maybe only 1 to 2 creatives. Any other tips or tricks or things that can really make the ads pop right off the bat so that you're not working against the algorithm, whether it's in bidding or placement or whatever that looks like?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll pass this immediately off to AJ because he is so up on this topic specifically.
Yeah.
All right. Well, algorithm, I mean, immediately you've got 2 very different algorithms on LinkedIn, and both we could probably talk at length about. But you have one that's the bidding algorithm for paid, and then one you have that is the exposure algorithm for organic. So is there one direction? I'm assuming you might want to stay paid on this one.
Well, let's start with paid, and then we can jump into to organic on the after we address the paid side.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, so on the paid side, that LinkedIn, just like any other network, wants to make money. And so they are going to favor ads that make them money more often. And what that means for them is most people are paying on a cost per click basis. So your click-through rate is going to be a very good guide of how much LinkedIn likes your content.
Interesting.
On Google, we have quality score. On Facebook, we have relevance score. And those are metrics that you have readily available to you. On LinkedIn, it's really difficult to know what our relevancy score is. But we take a guide by just looking at click-through rate. We know for sponsored content, the average click-through rate is somewhere around a 0.39%. And so if we launch an ad and it gets a 0.6% or a 0.8%, we know we're 40%, 100%, maybe even better than the average. And that's a really good indication of knowing, oh good, LinkedIn likes these ads. The audience likes them. It means that we probably don't have to bid as much in order to get LinkedIn to show these. Versus if you end up with a really poor, let's say you get like a 0.2% click-through rate, you've got to raise your bids to $11, $12, $15 before LinkedIn goes, okay, this is worth me now showing.
Gotcha. So I know on Facebook, engagement is a major metric they use as well for, likes, shares, comments, right? So the more of those you're getting, that's also a metric. Do you see a lot of correlation on the LinkedIn platform between likes and shares and then a higher, for lack of a better term, quality score or ability to show up more often?
I'm sure there is one. Maybe Matthew can speak to this one, but I don't see it as strongly of a signal. If I have a 0.9% click-through rate, but engagement pushes me to like a 1.6% engagement rate, I don't see that getting me much lower of a cost per click on average than if I had one that just had a 0.8% click-through rate and no engagement.
Gotcha. So click-through rate is sort of the gold standard on LinkedIn as far as we can tell right now.
That's what it feels like right now.
Cool. So then let's talk about the organic algorithm, because this is something that is related but very different. What are you seeing, AJ, on the organic side?
So organic LinkedIn right now is by far the biggest opportunity for any social marketer. We have what I call your virality quotient, and it's essentially, in my mind, the amount of views that your organic content gets divided by the number of followers or connections that you have. And it's really common. I have about 4,000 people who follow me. It's really common for my posts to get 9,000 to 15,000 views, which tells me that 3 to 4 times the number of people are seeing my content than have originally subscribed to follow me in some way or another. And it's really great for just getting a lot of free attention right now. And you can't get that on any other network.
Yeah. And so if somebody is doing what we do on the paid side, right? Is there any way we can leverage this? I mean, is it just sort of letting the client know that, hey, you should be involved organically? How do you approach this beyond your own personal brand, AJ, for like a client, if at all?
Probably not a whole lot of interaction between the two. For ads, we're using the company's page, and we know that company pages or org pages don't get as much interaction normally. I think it's just simply because on LinkedIn, you want to interface with a person, a human. You don't want to interface with a nameless organization or a faceless organization. So advertising is really going to play really well to getting your organization page out there, getting more followers, getting people to interact with the company. Whereas you professionally, if you're sharing something from your personal profile, chances are it's going to get a lot of likes and comments, and it's especially those comments that drive to virality. It lets your content reach your audience's audience.
Gotcha. Yeah. Because when I scroll through my LinkedIn feed, I mean, there's a lot of people that I see that I don't know. And it's your friend, like AJ, I see a lot of the people that you like or you engage with. AJ commented on this or Matthew commented on this way more than any other platform. So like even on the user, the consumer side, I think that makes sense instead of just the producer. So let's talk about InMail. So InMail is something that I know almost nothing about. I've never used it. What makes a good InMail campaign? When is it useful? When is it just sort of spammy? Like this one, I don't even really know what to ask. So I'm just sort of opening up the floor to you guys to take it away.
Man, Matthew, do you want to start? Is this something you feel passionate about?
Yeah, so I can touch on a couple of things. I'll let you finish it off from there, AJ. But what I've noticed with the clients I work with on InMail is it really depends on the objective we're trying to accomplish. I don't recommend it to every single client in every instance to just get in their inbox. There's a couple of things that do work pretty well. If you are looking for event registrations or webinar registrations, from time to time, we've seen those be really, really successful. If you combine that again with a message that's very, very contextually accurate to the user you're sending it to, like, hey, we know that you're a director of technology and we have this technology ebook guide that we know is going to help out, so on and so forth. Better copy than that because I can't write copy. Connect those things together and you have some real context to the individual and the message and the offer that you're sending out there. It can be a really, really good ad unit to use. There is also some data that I don't have off the top of my head that when used in conjunction with sponsored content, if your InMail is maybe you send the content out on sponsored single image, they get into that retargeting wheel, you then follow up with an InMail, CPLs you can start to lower and they work really, really well in tandem. Just doesn't work for everybody and probably is a conversation to have with your agency or your LinkedIn.
Yeah. So for somebody who doesn't know, maybe let's start even higher level. What is InMail, like exactly? And like, so from let's talk about somebody receiving one and then how you can send them and how you can set up that campaign.
It's a great question. So often with LinkedIn, there are terms that often can stretch to different sections of the business. So you may have received an email before from somebody with a sales solutions license, and that is a one-to-one email that requires a response. You can respond back to, you can open up a dialogue. Through marketing solutions, we can send emails at scale that have a call to action, essentially. That call to action can be check out the landing page to a blog, an ebook download, etc. There also can be a lead gen form, I believe, associated with an email to be sent as well. But that is a one-to-many education piece or content marketing. Couple notes with it. They're open about half the time, typically. And one of the reasons that happens is because a specific user can only see an email once every 45 days. So that's really good for seeing them being opened, but it does mean that, there's other marketers probably bidding against those audiences as well. So they don't spend as fluidly and as quickly as possible as people like sometimes. But hopefully that answers your question a bit.
Yeah. So basically, it's a way to get directly, so it's not an ad that they see in sponsored content. It actually goes into like their messages section, right?
Sure does.
And they only see one every 45 days. So the inventory on that's very small, right? Compared to, I guess, what you would consider your average, where you might see 3-4 ads in 5-10 minutes on LinkedIn. So AJ, where have you experienced these at all? Have you seen them? How are they working for any of your clients or campaigns?
Yeah, so I have kind of a duality of views on them because we run LinkedIn's largest sponsored in-mail account globally. And so we have obviously this one circumstance where it works really well. And then we have a whole bunch that we've tried and they haven't worked well. And the reason why that these are so specialty is it's not like the other ad formats where you only pay when someone clicks. This one, you pay to send it to someone. So if you send them something that's not interesting, then you paid to essentially spam them and they're going to ignore you. And so when you're looking at your cost per click and your cost per lead, the numbers are going to look insanely high. If you look at just the averages, you're probably going to pay between about 35 to 65 cents to send it to someone. And then 50% of those will open them. And then about 3 to 4% of those will click on your link. When you do the math, that comes out to something like a $23 to a $56 cost per click on average. So immediately most marketers are saying, whoa, I'm not willing to pay that much for a click. But the ones who are having a lot of success with this are not getting a 50% open rate and they're not getting a 3% click-through rate because they have an offer that if it would have come to you inside of an email, you would have been excited about the offer. So that means it feels like a personal invitation. It's a free VIP, like, come join us at this event. We want to invite you because of who you are in the industry. We want to give you early access or sneak peek to something. If it comes across as like legitimately something that you'd be excited about, that is the perfect offer for InMail. And you can get your cost per click like down below $1 if it's a good offer. But it takes a very special offer.
Gotcha. So typically your, I guess, generic ebook that you might do on the ad side is not probably going to be strong enough. It needs to be exponentially stronger, i.e. VIP access, something that's like, oh yeah, this makes me feel special and wanted and valued as a professional within the industry.
Yeah, and I'll throw that with the caveat of exactly what Matthew said. What I'm approaching it from is a cold first touch, but when Matthew's talking about using it for retargeting, that changes the game entirely. When it's a second or a warm touch, they can be a lot more effective. But yeah, for a first cold touch, it does take a special offer.
Awesome. Cool. Good to know. So Matthew, as somebody who is in the platform every day, what is coming, I guess, down the wire, if you will, on LinkedIn advertising? Where is LinkedIn ads going? Anything you can share, any insights you can share as far as what LinkedIn ads will look like in 3 months, 6 months, a year, either new tools or what's happening within LinkedIn itself?
Yeah. So you could ask me this question 3 months ago. You could ask me 3 months from now. You could ask me 3 months after that. And there would always be something, which is the really cool thing about marketing solutions. It's the social, digital, paid media space is big and it's getting bigger. LinkedIn Marketing Solutions is fast approaching like the 2 billion mark sooner rather than later. And because of that, there's a couple of cool things that have happened. There's people like me now who get to serve some of our mid-level marketers and organizations that for a very long time might not have had service. And what we're noticing is educating and helping out those clients as making a really big impact on their comfortability with the tool and actually driving results for their organization. So from like an organizational standpoint, that's one thing that is really, really exciting.
Yeah. Well, let me chime in real quick because I've had reps with Google and Facebook. I use those platforms a lot. Matthew is by far and away the best rep I've ever had on any platform, bar none. So I appreciate you for that part of it.
Right on. And just to note on that, a really cool story that I don't know if we'll have time to tell the full one. When I was first looking at this role and getting into marketing solutions, the first thing I did was YouTube, marketing solutions. The first person that popped up was AJ. The first person I reached out to was AJ and was like, hey man, can you teach me a bit about this? And it's been really cool. One of the first conversations we had was, hey, we want to have marketers be successful, but how do I make sure that the agencies we're working with really dig us as well and are willing to sit down at the table and have three-way conversations and be productive for the ultimate goal, which is making clients as good as they possibly can at the platform. But just to wrap up real quick on the new functions, one thing that's going to be happening and that's rolling out relatively soon is there are additional ad objectives that are being added to the platform at the moment. Like the ramp period has started, and I think it's at like 10% right now. What's happening is when you decide what ad unit you're going to use, you pick an objective. That may be site visits, lead generation, engagement, etc. There are new ones that are coming out, and in some instances, it's going to change the way that you are bidding. For example, site visits objective is going to soon charge just for reaching the landing page, which is a good thing, we think, for people who really want to drive site traffic. It's going to mean that you're going to want to rebuild all of your campaigns too, which is going to be a little bit of a challenge for some marketers, but objectives are coming out. It's going to be more widespread, and we're really excited about having those conversations with clients.
Very cool. And will that be then tied to like probably the pixel? So like it'll actually wait for the pixel to load versus, because right now you have clicks, you can know when somebody is supposed to get to the landing page, but realistically there's always a drop off between how many people actually click and how many people actually load the page. So will that be tied maybe to the LinkedIn pixel, or I guess, do you know anything about that?
It's a good question. I have to follow up on that. The specifics of how it's charged and how it connects back to, it's likely, but I'm not positive.
Sure. So AJ, what are your thoughts? Anything you see as, an outsider a little bit coming down the wire on LinkedIn, things that have changed over the past, couple of months, or things that will change, you think, over the next year or so?
I'm really excited about the pace that Marketing Solutions is developing new products, new targeting, new features at. When I very first got into it, I remember when LinkedIn's Marketing Solutions, the campaign manager, only had one engineer, and he was shared with the talent solutions side of the business. And so it literally took 3.5 years to get a new version of the platform out when they were building tools. And now we have this roadmap that, we're an official LinkedIn partner. So we get to see, 6 months, a year out. And we see 8-10 major things being released every single quarter. It's crazy to see, new targeting methods pop up that I wasn't expecting. It's just there one day, and new ad formats that are coming, objectives, new tools, more integrations. So I'm just really excited to see, kind of catching up to where Facebook really pioneered, but also a whole bunch of new stuff that you just can't get anywhere else.
Very cool. Good. Well, I think that's a really solid overview of the platform, gentlemen. I appreciate your time. So I think anything I should have asked or should have mentioned about the platform that I didn't, that you guys want to say or want to talk about?
I don't think so. I mean, this was really good as an overview, but anywhere you want to go, maybe on the next episode, anywhere you want to go more advanced, we can dig in deeper. But I think this is really good for a first blush.
Yeah, solid. Matthew, anything you want to add?
I would just say that if you're a daily marketer and you end up seeing this and you're not as privy to the platform, and this sounds like rocket science to you, it's not. And you'll find, I think, that there's less people in your organization than you would think that know how to operate this. If you're the one that's willing to get in there and ask for the budget and connect with educated people about it, it can be a serious play for your career, your organization, and it's a skill that at any tech company you go to that lives in this world, you're going to have value in that organization for learning how to do what you're doing. So can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable. I think especially the value to individuals who choose to pursue this, right? With Google, it's very saturated. There's a lot of PPC agencies, there's a lot of Facebook agencies, but there aren't a lot of people right now yet doing LinkedIn well. I expect that to change over the next year, couple of years as it gets more popular. But yeah, if you're young, I think what Matthew says, or you're in a career change, I think it's an amazing opportunity. All right, so AJ, where can people find you, connect with you, social, email, wherever you wanna get messages or get connections?
I'm pretty easy. If you go to our website, b2linked.com, and fill out the contact form anywhere there, you won't go to a sales rep and you won't go into my marketing automation workflow and join the newsletter. You will go just directly to my inbox, and I'm not a sales guy. Like, I won't try to sell you. So ask anything you want.
Awesome. That's the letter B, number 2, linked.com.
That's right.
And then Matthew, where can people connect with you?
Yeah, so the best way is just looking me up on LinkedIn. It's Matthew Milantoni, Milantoni. I've often had conversations with people about getting the most out of their organic stuff. If you want to book time with me, it's a bit.ly/Matt LMS. I'm cool with that. I am a sales guy, so I can't make the same promises that AJ does, but I do have named accounts, so I can't just work with people randomly, but I absolutely can offer advice randomly and do often.
Yeah, and I will say I've worked with Matthew on an account that we have, and it's been a great experience. So highly recommend it. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys soon.
Thanks, guys. Party on.
See ya.